Oh yeah, good morning. Hello. Welcome to yet another episode of Redstone Lapis Lazuli. Hello. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. Yes. Here I am. This is using the Luma 3. The Luma 3. Luma. I got to check it out. The but it's like an amazing texture pack for RTX. This is like version 3 and it's really nice. I really like it. I like the pink trees. I think the pink trees make it a great addition. It adds variety to the forests. Otherwise, it's all green. So I like the different colors of the trees, of the leaves. It makes it look more spectacular. And yes, I've been slowly working like bit by bit on the molten salt reactor. I get really distracted, and then I realized that I'm not dealing with enough room. I don't make it big enough, so I'm having to remake it and then redesign it. Because like it's just too small. Like I'm not making it big enough. That's my problem a lot in Minecraft, is that I don't understand scale. I just can't figure out the scale very good. No matter what, I can't do the scale very good. So that's my weakness. is scale. Like it tends because I have an issue with scale. I either like make it too big or too small, or I don't appreciate how much work it'll take or how complex it'll be. So I'm trying to make this a little bit bigger. I'm trying to make a molten salt reactor and to design it in a way that regular people can understand it. You don't have to be a nuclear scientist to know what's happening here. For part of it. But and the whole reason why I'm doing it is because I truly believe that humans, like, in the absence of any other information, like I don't have access to like top secret like projects going on behind the military or in like secret laboratories like underground somewhere by some like organization. All I know is like what's out there in public. And what's out there in public is the molten salt reactor. And China is building one right now, and they're gonna start it up and tell us how it works. And I'm excited because the United States made one 50 years ago, and it was great. But instead of moving forward with it, they fired the guy who invented it. And this was supposed to be the replacement for the nuclear reactor that everyone knows today, the light water reactor, the one that blows up. Man, that thing is awful. It's awful. It was never meant to generate power for civilian use. Never meant for civilian use. But like I can't tell you about the molten salt. I mean, I can tell you about it, but it's better to show you. And I can't show you until I built it, and it's not built yet. So like, and this is a show, not a like watch me play episode. So I don't have anything to show you. No, I can talk about stuff like that's been going on, but that's about it. But here's what the start is, right? The big difference between the light water reactor, which I haven't made yet, and dude, that keeps happening. Windows is like warning about a virus, but it's a false positive, and it's only this morning, and it's annoying. Okay. I was okay. So the light water reactor is the nuclear reactor that everyone knows. everyone knows and loves. Well, no, they hate. Everyone knows and hates. What are those things? Light water reactors take nuclear pellets, they're nuclear fuel in the form of a pellet. It's a solid fuel. It's a solid, and they make a rod out of it. Rods, and they just like stack up these pellets in a big rod. And like they like put the rod in some machine. I gotta look up how they do it exactly. But they put the rod in a machine, and the rod gets hot. It starts a nuclear reaction, and that rod, the fuel in it, starts getting really hot and hot and hot, hotter and hotter and hotter. It gets really hot, and then so water around that fuel rod catches the heat. The water around the fuel rod gets hot, and then you move the water away from the fuel rod over to the other heat exchanger. Well, you take the water from the fuel rod and you put it through a turbine. You spin it like steam, and then you put the water from the turbine and you send it back to the light water reactor. The problem is that there's two problems. One of the problems is, in order for the water to carry any like important amount of heat, it has to be pressurized, like a whole bunch, like 30 times gravity, a whole bunch of pressure in order to hold the heat. So number one, that takes you need a lot of structure around the water to make sure it stays pressurized. Because if that water becomes unpressurized, it blows up. Okay, the other problem is that the fuel rods, see, I should have made it. I shouldn't be talking about it. I should show you. The other problem is that the fuel rods are solid. They're solid. It's a solid thing. So the problem with solid is that a solid can melt. And when it melts, you can't control it anymore. Well, you can't control it anyways because it's a solid. So that's the problem with the solid fuel rods, is that once you like light this thing on fire and start burning the fuel rod, you cannot turn it off. You cannot turn it off. It keeps cooking. It keeps cooking nonstop. So you can put it in the reactor, but after a while, the solid that holds the fuel starts to break down. It can't hold it anymore. That's when you have to throw away the fuel rod. Even though it's still real hot, it's still like generating heat, you can't use it because it's gonna break down and melt down and you can't control it. So you retire the fuel rod, but it's still hot. And it's still radioactive. So it's basically nuclear waste. So what do? You stick it in a pool of water. Water. So the water does two things. The water here, I need to like pull up end rods. That will be my fuel rod. The water does two things. Number one, the water cools the fuel rod so that it gets hot, but the water's around it, so the water takes the heat away. So the fuel rod doesn't melt. And number two, the fuel rod is kicking out radiation. Like, bah, 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 bah. It's still hot. It's kicking out radiation. So the water around the fuel rod absorbs the radiation, so the radiation doesn't go anywhere. Okay, but there's a problem. The next problem, right? There's another problem. That water around the fuel rod is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And eventually it's going to reach 100 degrees Celsius. That's boiling, and that water is going to boil away. It's going to boil away. So you have to continually cycle out the water to carry away the hot water and to put in cool water. You have to do all of this just to take care of the wasted fuel rod. There's so many bad things that could go wrong. All along this chain, something could go wrong and bad things can happen. We've already seen it, right? We just have to look at our history. Like, what happens if the nuclear power plant loses power? If the nuclear power plant loses power, like there's no electricity to the nuclear power plant, the fuel rods are still there. They're still getting hot, but the water, the coolant, doesn't get to this anymore. It can't cool it down. So it can't take away the heat. So the solid rod gets so hot, it turns into liquid. Now it's a radioactive molten pool, and it's gonna get hotter and hotter. Now your fuel rod is a molten pool, and it's gonna get hot, and you can't stop it, right? It's a runaway chain reaction. That's called a meltdown. You can't stop. You can't make this stop. You can't make it stop. You cannot make it stop. So, and it's so radioactive you can't go near it. If you send a robot close to it, the radiation will fry the robot and the electronics die and the robot ceases to function. So what happens? The molten runaway reaction can't get any cooler. It starts to heat up the rock around it. And then the rock around the thing starts to melt. Now you have molten rock, molten lava with your molten radioactive fuel rod. And this thing just keeps going down and down and down. Hot, because it never cools down. It never cools down. It goes down, down, down until this molten slag of radiation awfulness hits the water table. Eventually it's going to hit the groundwater. The groundwater, it's going to cool it, but it's going to hit flash steam first, right? So it's going to like go down. Eventually enough groundwater is going to go around it that it's going to be cooled off. But now that radiation is buried deep in your water table. So now all your water that you draw from that aquifer is going to be radiation. You can't drink it, dude. You can't drink it. That is the nightmare scenario of the light water reactor. Anyways. That's the nightmare. So anyways, you use the fuel rod until the physical structure of the fuel rod is too brittle to keep using it. Like it's still hot, there's still energy in it, so you get rid of it. So you put it over here instead, right? Okay, but what happens is if your nuclear power plant loses power, like what happened in Fukushima, the machine that constantly cycles cold water onto your used up fuel rod stops going, right? It stops coming. So that water stays here and gets hotter and hotter and hotter. Before the water evaporates, though, because the water isn't being replaced anymore, it's just sitting there. It's constantly absorbing the radiation from this fuel rod. So what does the radiation do? What is nuclear fission? Because that's what's happening, right? What is nuclear fission? Nuclear fission is when a neutron fires off from decay and flies off, and it's going to fly off and it's going to hit a water molecule. What is a water molecule? Hydrogen, let's say H2O. Yeah, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. You have an oxygen guy sitting here and 2 hydrogens hanging out on either side of it. A neutron is going to fly by and hit the water molecule. But it hits the water molecule, it's going to break. It's going to break one of the hydrogen off. The oxygen and the hydrogen are going to break apart, and the hydrogen is going to fly away. So the radiation is constantly bombarding the water and turning it into oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen is lighter than oxygen, so hydrogen floats up, and it accumulates at the top of the building, right? Because this is all inside a building. It accumulates at the top of the building. Eventually, they turn on the electricity again, right? And there was a spark, and that spark lit all the hydrogen that was already up here and blew up the building. because of this problem here of the spent fuel rod, the solid fuel rod. All these problems are because of the fuel is solid. All of them. All the problems, all these problems I'm describing, this whole cascading, the resonance cascade of horror is all of it is because the fuel is solid. It's all because the fuel is solid. All of this whole long 15-minute scenario of evil that's already happened, you know, Chernobyl and Fukushima, it's already happened to us. It's already happened. And it's always because the same thing. Because the fuel that we use is solid. Every fucking time. Every time. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid to do this. This is stupid. Look, we can already look in Fukushima and in Chernobyl. Look how stupid this is. This is a dumb idea. We should stop doing this. This is dumb. This is stupid. My God, this is stupid. The problem is always because you're using solid fuel. So you have this like this incline here, right? It's an incline, and you're holding a big heavy rock with a rope. There's that big, and you're holding it with a rope, and you're trying to put it just at the right spot. You want to lower it to about in the middle. If it's too high up, you can't use it, and if it's too low, you lose control, and you drop the rope, and it rolls all the way down. So you're always trying to hold on to the rope at just the right place. That is a dumb way of doing it. This is just dumb. That's a stupid way of doing things. When we're looking down a hill and we're holding on to the rope and we're trying to not let go, but we don't want to pull it too high up and we don't want to put it too far down. We want it just in the middle place. Oh, and it's so hard to maintain. That's so dumb. That's so dumb. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Instead, this is the way we should be doing it. Instead, we want it to be a big heavy thing. A huge rock, a huge giant boulder, a huge boulder. So at first, right, and we want to roll it along a level cliff, a level field. It's not an incline, it's level. It's level. All we want to do is roll this boulder along a level thing. Our major problem here, it's not trying to hold it, it's not trying to maintain the perfect equilibrium. No, that's not our problem. Our problem here is to get it rolling. Look how big it is. Look how heavy that is. Like, man, how are we gonna get that thing rolling? It's huge. That's like impossible to get rolling. But imagine, right? Imagine we had something. Imagine we could enrich uranium to a certain degree, and we could jumpstart that. With that enriched uranium, we could go boom and do a jumpstart, and our jumpstart will get the boulder rolling. This huge massive thing, it's finally starting to roll. It starts rolling, right? At that point, now that it's rolling, now that our huge boulder is rolling, the only thing that we have to do now is just to keep poking it. Just a little bit. Just poke it. Poke. If we keep poking it, the boulder will keep rolling very slowly. Forever. All we do is just keep poking it. If we stop poking it, the boulder will stop rolling. And to make it roll again, we need another jump start. The problem here is if we let go of the rope, the boulder rolls all the way down and rolls over a town and destroys a town. And if we pull the boulder too close, it doesn't do anything. So and we're taking a lot of power to hold it too close. So it's always trying to get it in that Goldilocks place. The problem here, the worst thing that can happen here is that we don't poke it. If we don't poke it, it doesn't roll. It doesn't roll anymore and it stops. It's impossible for us to push it too hard. It's impossible. We can't do it. Even if we put another charge there, an extra jump start to make it go faster, it's so big it won't go any faster. It won't go any faster. It won't. It'll just it won't go faster. You can't make it go faster. You can't make it go faster. You can't make it run away. The only thing you can do is to poke it to keep it going. And if you stop poking it, then it stops. It doesn't go anywhere. If you let go of the rope here, the boulder is going to roll over a town and kill everybody. If you stop poking, the thing stops and doesn't go anywhere. This is liquid fuel. This is solid fuel. Solid fuel, liquid fuel. That's the difference. When we're talking nuclear power, the major thing is how your fuel is made. If your fuel is solid, you have a bunch of problems. If your fuel is liquid, your only problem is to keep poking it. So that's what I'm making here. This is what this is. This design is made so that all the fuel that you put in at first is going to be all solid, right? And it's going to be, everything's going to be solid. Solid fuel all the way through. It's all solid, right? This is your mixture of stuff. You have thorium in there. You have nuclear, you have thorium, you have nuclear waste, you have just stuff, right? It's a rock. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. All right. Now, what you do at this point is that if you're a country that can already make nuclear bombs, you're a country you can already enrich uranium. You already have on hand the capability of making nuclear weapons. You don't want to make nuclear weapons. This is not what this is for. You can't make nuclear weapons out of this thing here. You're not going to be able to do it. If you're making this thing, you can already make nuclear power weapons. You already make light water reactors. So this is not going to make more nuclear weapons. No, this is the opposite. This thing will eat nuclear weapons. This thing eats nuclear weapons. You don't make nuclear weapons out of this. Because, yeah. So, but it's solid, right? It's just solid rock. So, since you're a country that can already make nuclear weapons, you can already do it. You already have it on hand. You already have enriched uranium. That is your charge. That is your jump start. If you don't have your enriched uranium, that's okay. Be friendly with a country that does have your enriched uranium, and they will gladly give you a charge, because you only need one. You don't need a bunch. You need one charge to get this thing going. So you drop in, right? You drop in your nuclear waste, and that heats up the salt for the whole thing. The whole thing gets heated up. And all of this turns into liquid. All right, this is your fuel. The whole thing is liquid. I can't see anything. Come on, guy. I thought you could see, like, do I have to use a lava potion? Fire resistance, 8 minutes. Okay. I should be able to see through here now. Yeah. Okay. Oops, this is the not yet. We're gonna plug this. Okay. Okay. So now it's going, right? Now your thing is going. Now this is your nuclear reactor. It's going. You jump started it. It's going. it's going. Okay, down here at the bottom, you have, let's see, ice. Blue ice, sure. You have a fan going right here, and that fan keeps that part of the molten salt, it keeps it cool, so it stays hard. It can't go anywhere. So electricity is blowing to make this cold. All right, so now your thing is going. Imagine, let's pretend, okay, do you know right now in Ukraine, Russia has set up its troops right next to a nuclear power plant, a light water nuclear power plant. So if Ukraine attacks Russia, the Russian position, they might damage the nuclear power plant and cause a meltdown, that horrible thing that I was talking about. But if you have a molten salt reactor, if your fuel is liquid like this, and something bad happens, like your containment vessel gets busted open, oh no, it got blown up and everything leaked everywhere. No problem. Because for this to keep going, in order for this to stay molten, you have to keep adding in fuel. You have to constantly add fuel. If you stop adding fuel, it'll turn into a rock again. It doesn't go anywhere. If you stop adding fuel, it turns into a rock and stops going anywhere. Not like the molten salt, not like this. Here, if you lose electricity, the thing runs away and destroys a town. Here, if you stop adding fuel, it just stops going. It turns into a rock and doesn't go anywhere. It's just safe. It's safe. It's way safer, much safer than this here. That's why you want to use it. So you can't blow it up because the fuel is molten and it's not going to go anywhere if you blow it up. There's no water to create hydrogen to blow up the building. Like, what's the other problem? Oh yeah, okay. So the problem here is that the fuel rod only gets burnt up a little bit before the physical structure of the pellet becomes too weak to keep using it. So they have to ditch it, right? They have to ditch it and put it in a pool of water. And they have to leave it here but the whole thing is still really good. It's still full of energy. We could still use it. So instead of just keeping in a pool of water and not using it, you take it and you chuck it into these things. You can chuck those fuel rods into this as fuel to keep this molten, to keep it going, to keep it hot. And then you get the heat from this and you turn it into electricity without burning any fossil fuel. So you're not destroying forests, you're not burning coal, you're not burning oil, you're not adding CO2 to the environment, you're not adding to global warming, but you're making a whole bunch of electricity, and you're eating nuclear waste, and you're eating nuclear bombs. I mean, this thing literally eats nuclear bombs. So I kid you not, this thing literally turns swords into plowshares. Literally, you can transform nuclear power into solar power panels. Solar panels. You can literally transform nuclear bombs into solar panels to do algae farming. I don't know. To do something to generate electricity and to generate food. You can use the solar power panels to grow things underground. Like, I don't know, right? All sorts of great things. Or in remote areas where you don't have like access to nuclear power. So maybe because nuclear power is great, but we still need wind, solar, wind and solar for sure. We need solar power for sure. I mean, look at the plants. Come on, guys. Obviously, solar works. It's like, let's just look at life. Obviously, solar works. We need to follow solar power. So we could use the energy from burning down nuclear bombs and transform it into solar power, solar panels to generate carbon-free electricity in remote areas that aren't close to a nuclear power plant. Like, the whole thing just is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we just got to get away from the idea of a solid. Get away from the idea of a solid and move to like a melting pot, right? It's not about the solid where you have like individual forms. It's about the melting pot. I'm telling you, this thing is self-regulating. Suppose an evil scientist came by and said, ha 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 ha, I'm gonna try to make your your molten salt nuclear reactor melt down and run away by adding extra fuel. Ha 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 ha, extra fuel. Like, I'll chuck in extra nuclear bombs into here, and then I'll make your thing explode and run away. No. Ha 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 ha. No, I can't like, I have to like make another model to show you. But the way this thing works is, the way fusion works is that you have big, huge clumps of atoms, right? They're huge clumps of atoms. There's huge, tons of them, right? Huge clumps. And naturally, this thing will break apart. Naturally, just break apart. And it will send pieces flying off. And at the atomic level, for us, like rah, rah, rah. But at the atomic level, there's a lot of space in between one atom and the other atom. There's a lot of space. So just because I shoot something, it doesn't mean I'll hit anything. I could shoot, even though like at the atomic level, this looks solid to me. At the macro level, this looks solid to me. You're like, oh, I can't do anything. When you get down to the atomic level, there's so much room between one atom and the next. It's like a galaxy of space in between these atoms. At our level, they're solid, impenetrable. But at their level, tons of space. You can shoot a particle through and not hit anything. So that's what's happening, right? But what makes a material fissionable is that they're so close together that when they break apart, they hit another big atom, and then that atom also breaks apart, and that breaks apart two more atoms, and then those two break apart two more. So that's 4 atoms, and you see that starts a chain reaction. So 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, like 32 becomes 64, and it starts getting out of control. It's like exponential. Okay. But so in this situation, right? If a mad scientist wanted to like try to destroy our molten salt nuclear reactor, if a mad scientist tried to destroy it by adding extra fuel in, he's gonna add in extra stuff to make it overload. What happens is that the molten salt becomes hotter. It becomes hotter. But the boiling point for this molten salt is 1400 degrees Celsius. That's insane. That's huge. You will never get to 1400 degrees Celsius. Why? Why won't I ever get to 1400 degrees Celsius? If I keep adding fuel to make it hotter and hotter, it will naturally get to 1400 degrees Celsius, right? No. Because what happens is that the hotter you get, the hotter the salt gets, the more it expands. The more it expands, the more space between the atoms. So when it's cold, the atoms are really close together. And it's easy to shoot from one to the other one because there's not a lot of space. But the hotter it gets, the more space between the atoms. And the more space between the atoms, the harder it is to hit another atom and break it apart and to keep hitting another atom. So if you can't hit another atom, if you can't hit another atom, then your reaction stops and it starts cooling down. No matter what, you can't add enough to make it till it boils. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. It will naturally cool down to the point where it self-regulates. You can't do it. So this is other part that I'm not showing you that I need to like work out. What color do I want to use for that? Purple. So of course, right? The fuel, the salt, the salt has to be cleaned. You can't just like use it up forever, right? You have to purify it. So there's one loop that takes out the bad stuff from the salt and then adds more fuel to keep the reaction going. So that's one loop. Then you have another loop that takes the heat so this loop is going to clean the salt out because the salt is going to get dirty eventually. So that cleans it, and then it also adds more fuel in it and puts it back in. Then you have this other loop, which takes the heat, right? This thing's always generating heat. It takes the heat, it heats it up, and wraps it around here. And this is where it's going to meet a heat exchanger. That's going to be water. Blue. Exchanger. But in this figure eight, and I do my best to recreate. What? Okay, heat exchanger. So you have another heat exchanger. This way. All right. So you have one loop here that cleans the salt and adds fuel to keep the reaction going. If you don't add fuel, the thing will stop. You have to add fuel or it will stop going. You have another loop that takes the heat and drops it off at the heat exchanger. This part makes it hot. This part makes it cold. Hot, cold, hot, cold. All right. This part takes the heat from there and puts it into here. So this blue part gets hot and then goes to this part. I gotta make, this is where I'm gonna do my turbine. I want it too big because I okay. Bop, 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 bop. Get out of there. That's a turbine. And it spins a turbine. That generates electricity. So out of this, you get power. There. So that's how we generate power, electricity. And then this goes back here. That is a super, super simple molten salt reactor. The simplest design of molten salt reactor here. This way is going to clean. How am I gonna clean it? What color am I gonna clean? What's that gonna look like? Stone, sure. Cobblestone, sure. And then here's the fuel. We're gonna use, yeah. So clean, refuel. Hot, this is the heat exchanger. Hot, cold. All right. And this is like the turbine, the steam turbine. So it blows through and cools off, goes back to the loop to pick up more heat. And then there it is. There it is. That's the first. I have to make, I guess I should make a light water reactor. I need to make this part better, so because you can't really see what I'm talking about here. Anyways, you get the idea, right? I hope you get the idea. It took me a long time to get you the picture there. Let me get more coffee. So yeah, good morning. I had a hard time sleeping last night, and I figured out why that is. My apartment retains heat, so in the afternoon and the setting, the western sun is all on my building, all on my wall. I'm just sucking up that heat, and all night it's super hot until the morning. So yeah, this heat, man. We're gonna have to we need to make this as soon as possible. China is making this right now. China is making a 2 megawatt version of this right now. I'm not joking. They really are. They're making a 2 megawatt version of this right now. I think the United States needs to hurry up. Like, since we were the ones who came up with this, we should have made massive advancements on this by now, and we should be using it. Because with this, you can also desalinate seawater. Yay! All right. So, what else is going on? Okay, I want to take care of some old business first. Old business. The big thing right now is that Donald Trump has been found in possession, or had possession, of classified information, top secret information he wasn't supposed to have. His lawyers lied and said that he had already turned it all in, and he didn't. He knew he had it, and he lied, and he said he didn't have it. And then a guy named, somebody came on and said that you can't prosecute Donald Trump because of what happened with Hillary Clinton. Yeah, let's look at that. What happened with Hillary Clinton? Let's go back. Let's look at the record. The record. That's why records are important. The record. This is a transcript from a hearing in 2016, a transcript between Representative Elijah Cummings and FBI Director James Comey in the House. Let's read in July 7th, 2016. All right. All right. Mr. Cummings, Director, thank you for your patience. I want to clear up some things. I want to make sure I understand exactly what you testified to on the issue of whether Secretary Clinton sent or received emails that were marked as classified. On Tuesday, you stated only a very small number of the emails containing classified information or markings. I emphasize markings, indicating the presence of classified information. Republicans have pounced on this statement as evidence that Secretary Clinton lied. But today, we learned some significant new facts. I hope the press listens to this. First, you clarify that you were talking only three emails out of 30,000. Only three emails. Only three emails. What's this 30,000? Only three emails out of 30,000. Is that right? Director Comey says three. Yes. Only three. 3 out of 30,000. Is that right? Yes, at least 30,000. At least 30,000. Second, you confirm that these three emails were not properly marked as classified. They were not properly marked as classified. Three. They only found 3 out of 30,000, and of the 3, they weren't even marked. They weren't even marked as classified. At the time, based on the federal guidelines and manuals, they did not have the classification headers. They did not list the original classifier, the agency, office of origin, reason for classification, or date for declassification. These emails included only a single quote, C, and then end of quotation mark for confidential one paragraph lower down in the text. Is that right? Correct. Okay. Third, you testified that based on these facts, it would have been, quote, a reasonable inference for Secretary Clinton to immediately conclude that the emails were not classified. It is a reasonable inference that the 3 emails out of 30,000, it's reasonable that they were not classified based on everything that was there. So that was also new critical information. But there's one more critical fact that these emails were not, to the press, these emails were not classified. The State Department explained to us yesterday, they reported that these emails are not classified, and that including this little c on these emails was the result of human error. The bottom line is that those little c's should not have been on those documents because they were not, in fact, classified. So what he's talking about when he says little c is, let me see, what do I got here? Will that pop up? Nope. Get rid of this. Paint. Okay, so what he's talking about is, let me read that again. Only a single quote. It was only a single quote. Rah, 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 rah. C, and then end of the quotation mark. So So when it was quote the information little c and then end of the quote. So Director Comey concluded that it was be out of 30,000 emails had this thing here. And that was the only indication that the information might have been classified. But it wasn't classified. And any reasonable person would have reasonably concluded that it was not classified. So the whole email Clinton thing is made up. Literally made up. Literally made up. He just made it up. It's literally nothing. It's literally, this is it. This is literally it, guys. The whole, every time they say emails, Clinton emails, the server, this is what they're talking about. A little c at the end of a sentence. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about folders of classified with markings on it. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about a little tiny c at the end of a sentence. Let's get some perspective here between what happened to Hillary Clinton and what Donald Trump is doing. Hillary Clinton was not prosecuted for her email thing because there was nothing to prosecute. There was literally nothing to prosecute. Donald Trump should be tried for treason. And if the United States finds Donald Trump guilty of treason, it is the law of the United States that people who are found guilty of treason be punished with death. It's the law. Donald Trump knows this. Donald Trump did it 13 times as president. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knew what the cost was for betraying the United States. Donald Trump knew the cost of betraying the United States. He knew the cost. He wasn't ignorant. He used it 13 times. And every time he points to Hillary Clinton to say, well, what about Hillary? Remember the little c at the end of a quotation mark. Raw.
Pogo Kuro says raw c backslash.
Not the backslash, but the little c. That was it. That was the whole thing. That is the entirety of the email debacle. That's the entirety. The little c is the entirety, the whole thing, the entirety of the email debacle. That's everything. I can't believe I was dumb enough to fall for this. That's how stupid I was. All I had to do was listen to what the government was talking about back in July of 2016. But I was a dumbass. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the press. I don't know. But I feel pretty stupid. I feel pretty dumb. And then I look at Donald Trump still doing the same thing. I'm like, you mother. I can't believe you're trying to use the same thing again. Yeah, Donald Trump is a bad guy. He's a bad guy. I don't think we can, I think it's what it comes down to is it's either the United States find if they find Donald Trump guilty of treason, they should execute him. Because if they don't, Russia's going to do it, Putin's going to do it, and then claim victory. Even if Putin doesn't do it, whatever happens to Donald Trump, if Putin's going to say, oh, we did it, so look how strong Russia is. No matter what, they're going to say that they did it if the United States doesn't do it first. No matter what. Like, if the United States does not execute Donald Trump for treason, and Donald Trump lives longer, and he dies from whatever random thing that happens to Donald Trump, Putin will say, oh, we, Russia, caused that random thing. We assassinated Donald Trump because he was of no use to us anymore. He totally screwed the United States. And when he no longer served Russia, we got rid of him. Ha ha ha. The United States could do nothing. Ha 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 ha. That's what Putin's going to say. So I think it's just one more reason why the United States ought to look very closely at looking at the death penalty for Donald Trump should he be found guilty of treason and espionage. It's only the law. That's it. And Donald Trump used it 13 times, so he knew what the stakes were. This one. Oh, I did it again. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. So Joe Biden gave his awesome speech. It was a great speech. It was great. Joe Biden called out the fascists, and it was so good that the mainstream tried to ignore it. No mainstream press carried the speech. It was hilarious. How many times did mainstream press carry Donald Trump's fascist speeches? But none of the mainstream press carried Biden's speech calling out the fascists. Pretty interesting, huh? Makes you think about where the mainstream press sits when it comes to fascism. They're all hunky-dory with carrying Donald Trump's speeches, but when an American president calls out fascism, they won't carry it. That's funny. That's interesting. So all the fascists, there's a saying we have in America. The saying is, if a shoe fits, wear it. So all these fascists are coming out and saying, I can't believe Joe Biden is calling us fascists. And all these fascists, so many of them came out in the open and complained that the shoe fit them so well. It's like Joe Biden tailor made a shoe for them, and it fit them so well they could do nothing but sing praises as to how well the shoe that Joe Biden made, how well that fit them, how well it fit. They just all the time they talked about it. Here, John Harwood, in fact, it was such a good speech. John Harwood wrote an excellent story about it. And John Harwood said, the core point that Biden, made in that political speech about a threat to democracy is true. It's true. The point that Biden made about the threat to democracy is true. Now, that's something that's not easy for us as journalists to say. We're brought up to believe there's two different political parties with different points of view, and we don't take sides in honest disagreements between them. But that's not what we're talking about. These are not honest disagreements. The Republican Party right now is led by a dishonest demagogue. Many Republicans are rallying behind his lies about the 2020 election and other things as well. And a significant portion, or a sufficient portion, of the constituency that they're leading attacked the Capitol on January 6th violently. By offering pardons or suggesting pardons for those people who violently attacked the Capitol, which you've been pointing out numerous times this morning, Donald Trump made Joe Biden's point for him. Yeah, Donald Trump offered to pardon all the January 6th rioters, insurrectionists, if he got power again. So Donald Trump proved Joe Biden's point that he made in his speech. And guess what? Right after John Harwood gave that story, he got fired by CNN. Why? Because John Harwood brought attention to the distinction between Democrats and fascists, Americans and fascists, There's a distinction. There's a distinction between Americans and fascists. Americans believe in democracy. Fascists believe in power. John Harwood committed an unforgivable sin for the news industry. Because remember, the news industry is really friendly. The American news, the private news industry is real friendly with fascism. John Harwood brought attention to the distinction between American democracy and fascism. So the news agency got rid of him for bringing attention to that distinction. Just like Colin Kaepernick was got blacklisted from the NFL for bringing awareness to the distinction between Black Americans and white Americans, in that Black Americans get killed by the police all the time. Did you see that video where the cops came in and killed that guy, shot that guy within a second of opening the door? Within a second. There was no time for anything. They didn't see anything. They just opened the door and shot the first person they saw. They just shot the first person they saw. Like, cops have no problem killing people that offer no threat to them. No problem. They will hide behind children if they think that if the threat is a danger to them. But if they'll hide behind children. They'll let children die if they think the person doing it might hurt the police. But if the person won't hurt the police, they'll kill them right away. They kill little kids. They kill unarmed people. It doesn't matter. The police kill people all the time. Why? Because we live in a system of white supremacy. Donald Trump and the fascists represent that white supremacy. They represent the system that kills Black people. They represent that system. They're a symptom of that system. They're not a cause of it. They're a symptom of it. Donald Trump is a symptom of the system of white supremacy, of fascism. Fascism, white supremacy, patriarchy go hand in hand. And they're all anti-American. So yeah, Ukraine right now is going on a counteroffensive. Don't believe any news you hear from Russia. Russia wants to already say that the counteroffensive failed before it even started. So the Ukrainian president Zelensky said, I don't want any frontline reporters to be there. There are no frontline reporters right now. So any news that you hear from the front line is coming from Russia, and it's disinformation. Don't believe it. What else is going on? Yeah, I can't believe I was so dumb, like, to fall. I mean, maybe was I dumb, or did the press tell it? Did the press ever say that it was only 3 emails and it was literally raw.
Pogo Kuro says rah see.
That was it. That was the whole thing. That was it. That was everything. That is the entirety of the Clinton email scandal. Why didn't the press tell me? Or if they did, why didn't I understand? Oh my God. All right. So, a thing that a lot of people like to say is, go read a book. Go read a book. If you want to know something, go read a book. Go read a book if you want to know something. That's pretty good. Do your due diligence. Like, do your research. See what people have already done. Don't reinvent the wheel. That's a good idea, right? That's a good idea. But sometimes it's not always a good idea to do that. Sometimes what you want is a clean, fresh impression. You don't want it to be tainted by anything. So I have experience in this, and I don't want to share my experience. It's a bad experience. I want to share it so that others can avoid it in the future, because I don't want this to happen to other people. When I first got to Japan, I literally first got Japan. I didn't really know anything about Japan at all. I didn't really know anything. I didn't know anything. So we got all split up from our little Western group, and we were pretty isolated. But one of the Westerners, one of the teachers, gave me a book, and I don't remember who I need to find it again. But I had a book, and he said, "Oh, you should read this book about Japan, and it will help you understand Japan." And but I just got here. He's like, "Oh yeah, read this book, and it'll help you understand." So like a dumbass, I read this book about, from this author who I don't know, based on, just because this guy gave me a book. So I read this book, and this book, has some perspectives on Japan. Are they valid? Are they true? I don't know. I just read the book. I'm in Japan. I don't know anything, right? I just read it. And one of the things that the book, unbeknownst to me, was pretty critical of Japan. And so I uncritically repeated it. Oh man, how embarrassing. I was brought in to be a judge for an English speaking competition at a high school, and I was trying to make small talk with a bunch of English, Japanese teachers of English, and I didn't know what to say, so I started just repeating things I heard from the book. And one of the things they said in the book was that the Japanese education system doesn't teach their students to critically think. And so I repeated it, and then the teacher got really offended, and I was like, and wanted me to defend what I said. And I was like, oh shit, I can't, because I don't know what I'm saying, because I just repeated a thing that I read. Because out of a book, I didn't know what I'm talking about. So I felt bad. I felt real bad, because that damaged our relationship. Because now they think I'm a bigot. Because I kind of acted like a bigot, because I just repeated uncritically some negative thing about a culture I just got to. And and so after that, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to finish reading this book. I'm going to sit here and absorb this on my own, and then come up with my own idea of what's going on, and not read this book and tell me what's happening. If I read this book, it's going to precondition my ideas about what's going on, and then I'm not going to get a clean impression. So I tell you that as another warning. And if you read the book Dune, you find out that Paul Atreides avoided the people who did tarot and fortune telling, because those things confused his vision. They confused prescience. Like, you have a vision, but when you use these things to peer into the future, it messes with your future vision. It messes with things. And you look for things that you wouldn't otherwise look for. And by looking for things that you wouldn't otherwise look for, you've altered the way things are going. So in order to keep the vision pure, Paul Atreides avoided fortune tellers and future seers who would predict the future based on readings of stuff, of not actual things. All right. And my final point, because I'm coming to the end of stuff. I didn't really spend a lot of time playing Minecraft. I need to make the light water reactor, maybe to explain this better. No, I spent a lot of time doing this. My final point is that I've been to at least 2 countries, probably 3, in which they had this amazing innovation in the bathroom. In Thailand, well, it wasn't the first time I noticed it, but in Thailand, they have it, the bathroom set up where the toilet and the shower are like at the same level. There's no barrier between the shower and the bathroom, so that like yeah, like the whole bathroom is like a tiled floor to like, and like the whole floor can get wet and all it drains into one area. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Like in the United States, we have our water area sealed off from the rest of the bathroom. And yeah, and it's like, why? I saw, but I remembered, and then it came to my head. I remembered the very, very, very first time I ever saw that was in Sweden. It was an apartment in Sweden when I first saw it, with the shower and the toilet in the same on the same level in the same room. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's like a brilliant idea. Why don't we do that? Why doesn't the United States make our showers and bathrooms like the same way, on the same level? Because you're doing the same thing. You're getting clean, one way or the other. Like you're purifying yourself, getting clean. Like it makes it easier to get clean, to keep everything clean, if there's not an artificial divide between stuff. Yeah, I just dug it. I just liked it, and I saw it in 2 different countries at least. I saw it in Sweden, and I saw it in Thailand. So yeah, if people can come up with the same idea in opposite sides of the world, it's probably a good idea, and we should follow it. All right, guys. I think yeah. I let's keep going, right? It's my birthday week, so here's to me. I'm gonna celebrate for myself. if and yeah, here's to one more year around the planet. It's been quite a trip. I wanna looking forward to it. So, um, all right. Until next time, America. Peace. Pogo Kiddo out. Stop.